Hi, this is Norm Vaughn. I think I'm recording. Yeah, I am recording. And I'm really excited. This is a presentation that Alana and I have done about finding the sweet spot in the BD portfolios, how potentially students can connect their personal, classroom, and their field-based learning experiences. So to begin, what I'd like to do is give you an introduction to our study, then talk a little bit about the background, what other people are doing in this area, the context, where we and who we conducted the research with, the methods of investigation, the findings, the recommendations, follow-up, and we also have a handout so that if you miss any of this information, we've got it on a Google Doc that you can access at any time. Move on a little bit to the introduction. So the focus of our study was on second-year students who are in the BD program currently. Now, what they're doing is they're looking at the Alberta interim teaching certificates and specifically the knowledge, skills, and attributes it takes to become an amazing teacher in Alberta. And as I mentioned, what we were focusing on was the connection between the classroom, the field-based, the personal experience, and looking really specifically at the sweet spot. In terms of background, again, mentioned that Alberta Education has these interim KSAs. There's 17 of them, and they've been grouped into the following 5 categories that came out of a draft document a few years ago, Professional Practice Competencies for Teachers. The first category is planning for learning. The second is facilitation. The next one is assessment, followed by the environment, professional responsibilities and relationships. And again, really like to emphasize that this is a framework that's being used not only in Alberta, but throughout North America. Here's a chart from Alberta College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Very similar framework. In terms of furthering our background, there's 4 institutions we looked at, and we looked at their portfolio process. We looked at the University of Victoria, which really had a focus on the professional growth of students over the elementary education program. Then we looked at the University of Houston, which is a strong digital storytelling focus. Next was Alverno College, which very clearly maps the portfolio to the various competencies and the curriculum, the courses that students are taking throughout the elementary program, followed by the University of Auckland. And we really liked this one. This one had a real sense of wonder and inquiry into what it means to be a teacher, a lot of self-study. Next was the research context. The study was conducted here at Mount Royal, the Bachelor of Education Elementary Program study, done over this academic year, the fall and the winter of 2012-2013, looking specifically at the faculty members involved in the program as well as the second-year students in the program. And here's a picture of just, the amazing crew that makes. In terms of the methodology, what we did is, in terms of the faculty, there was interviews conducted with 6 faculty, 5 full-time, 1 part-time. In terms of the second-year students, this happened in the winter semester. 57 out of 65 of the students completed an initial online survey. We've had weekly class discussions about the portfolio process, about the artifacts going in there. We had an end-of-winter survey that's still to be completed, and conversations with external consultants, the 4 universities that we outlined that we've been looking at their portfolio process, as well as 3 local school boards, the Rocky View, the Calgary Board, and the Calgary Science School. In terms of our guiding questions, there's 5 of them. The first question is, what is the purpose from a faculty and a student perspective around the portfolio? What are the key components of the portfolio? After your first year, this is a specific student question. How did it help you connect your learning? 4th question, the challenges, and then that's really our 4 findings. And then 5th was, how can we improve this process? This is the first time that we've done the portfolio in the second year, so how can we continue to improve the process? So here's some of our findings. First question, as mentioned, is what is the purpose? And from both the faculty and the student perspective, there were really three purposes to the portfolio. The first was around documenting student learning in the program. Second one, that assessing, that making sure that students could demonstrate they'd mastered these interim knowledge, skills, and attributes. And finally, to showcase what's been learned for potential future employment. You can see the weighting was a little different. Faculty were interested in the students documenting their learning in the program, and you can see 45 comments. The students are very obviously interested in using the portfolio for future employment. Some of the key components of the portfolio from a faculty perspective, they were really interested in the journaling, the reflection. Students were interested really in their story, their journey, how they've been able to grow as a teacher throughout the program. Faculty interested in the documentation of the artifacts. Students very interested in a resume component of the portfolio, really demonstrating the knowledge, skills, and attributes. Faculty indicated how important it is that you can hear and you can feel the student's voice in the portfolio. And the students were really interested to document how their teaching philosophy had changed over the 4 years in the program. In terms of other components, faculty obviously interested in documenting professional growth, students wanting to document the different volunteer practicum experiences they'd had in the program, strong introduction, telling the reader about the student, about their goals, which sort of matched up with the students about really, what are their teaching goals, why they want to be a teacher, and why they're going to be a great teacher. A bit about teaching philosophy as well from the faculty, and again, artifacts from the student perspective that demonstrate their teaching competencies. In terms of other components, faculty indicated they should really show that they have a variety of experiences, especially for elementary education. Students talking about documenting the courses they've taken not only in the education program, but the general education courses they've taken as well. Relevant documents and reports, the resume. Students even mentioning that maybe they should be putting their university transcripts, their grades, in the portfolio. In terms of the student perspective, how the portfolios help them connect their learning in the program, students commented primarily about how now they've got all the artifacts in one place to critique and reflect upon. Number of comments, though, that it hasn't. It's been a disconnected experience. They've only done portfolios once before in what's called the 1233, the second introductory course, and haven't touched the portfolio since then. Professional growth, it's helped them clearly see how they've grown throughout the program. Some other comments, the journaling, how they've really been able to reflect about the artifacts they have. Peer learning, the opportunities to see what each other have done and give feedback on each other. And it's interesting, we had some students comment that already the portfolios help them get volunteer placements or paid placements as educational assistants. Some of the challenges, faculty really talked about it, a superficial versus a deep approach. Often it's just scrapbooking, you just put a bunch of stuff in, it's not a lot of reflection. Students talked a lot about the initial technology issues, especially around the Google applications, Google Sites, Google Documents. Not really clear initially about what the purpose and the vision of the portfolio were. Concerned about how their portfolio looked unique from the others and other students. And, faculty said, finding time to give the students meaningful feedback on their portfolios. A few others, students are new to this concept. They need some time. They're concerned about conforming to set criteria. They really want to see their creativity, their individuality come out in the portfolios. And again, they talked a little bit about the personal nature of the learning portfolio and moving to a professional nature of the final exit portfolio. Some of the faculty learned about the scope and size, that it's getting quite large, and is this relevant for future job interviews for the student? A few others, again, finding the space and time for the students to work on their portfolios, students indicating it takes a lot of time to work on this. Some concerns from students about the lack of field experience they're getting in the program, some concerns about self and peer assessment, and from the faculty perspective, as students really understand what these 5 KSA, these 5 program competencies are all about. A few other challenges from faculty is journaling. Do students really know how to do deep reflective journaling? What's our involvement in it? Really, it's important that everybody in the program's on board using the same system, and how it's important that we embed this in every course. It's not just in one course in first year, another course in second. So some of the recommendations in terms of the faculty, they think this should be a mandatory part of each course, that we should really focus, like you do at the University of Victoria, on professional growth and identity, that it needs to be relevant for students. Students don't see this as an add-on. A lot of students didn't have much in the way of feedback. They thought the process was going well. They did mention that there should be extra support. We need to work with our different student learning services areas on campus to make sure. And some tips. There needs to be some tips on creating good portfolio documents. This was led also by students talking about that we really need a process and document and guidelines for the portfolio over the 4 years, and they'd like to see a greater employment focus. Faculty mentioned that we really need to encourage the students to actively work on their portfolios throughout the program, and that we should probably get some external advice from other institutions about what really needs to take place in the process and what the product needs to look like. A few other recommendations from faculty: we need to celebrate the portfolio process at the end of the 4th year. We need to begin the portfolio in day 1 in the new orientation, and create the time and space for faculty and student feedback. Again, students indicated that they'd like to see more room for creativity in the portfolios, like to be able to really understand these KSAs in each course, and spending a little more time in each of the courses working on the portfolio. Some final recommendations: just making sure faculty said integrating the Google Journal process with the Google Sites for portfolios, focusing on formative ongoing assessment, making sure we define the KSAs for students, and again, students really want to have clarify the purpose of the vision of the portfolio, and getting the portfolio going right at the beginning of the program, and getting critical friends involved feedback. Last thing faculty said is really need to do a gap analysis. How are we helping students empower? How are we helping them develop these different KSAs in each of our courses? Follows in terms of some FLEP. What we're doing right now is a gap analysis, really helping students with student voice. What are the competencies being addressed in each of the courses? What are the artifacts from each of the education courses they should be putting in their portfolio? And also developing a portfolio template that's used throughout the entire 4th year. Right now, the first year template looks a little different than the second year template, so being a little more consistent with the template that's used for students. And some wonderful references here from Helen Barrett, who's done a lot of work in the area of portfolios, how portfolios can be used for formative feedback, evaluating the effectiveness, making learning visible with portfolios, and how we can really incorporate storytelling. So with that, if you do have any info or questions, be sure to contact myself or Alana. There's our email. And again, just want to emphasize that all of this study is documented on our handout. It's in Google Docs. It's tinyurl.com portfolio study. All the best, and have a great day.